Hi, I'm Peter J. Ray. Welcome to Adventures in History. Today's topic is the 1957 Cleveland Indians AL MLB baseball season. Again, the Tribe was playing in the American League, the junior circuit of Major League Baseball, and home games were played at Cleveland Municipal Stadium, which is now where First Energy Stadium is located. The Tribe had a tough year in 1957. They finished in 6th place with a record of 76 and 77, one game under 500, winning percentage of .497, 21 and a half games out of first. The first place team was the New York Yankees, who were 98 and 56, winning percentage of .636. Second place, the Chicago White Sox, 90 and 64, 8 games out of first. Third place, the Boston Red Sox, 82 and 72. Fourth place, the Detroit Tigers, 78 and 76. Fifth place, the Baltimore Orioles, 76 and 76. Sixth place, the Cleveland Indians, 76 and 77. Seventh place, the Kansas City Athletics, 59 and 94. And in eighth and last place, the Washington Senators, who were 55 and 99, winning percentage of .357, 43 games out of first. During the season, there were rumors that the Tribe would move to Minneapolis-St. Paul, Minnesota, but that did not happen. Attendance was really down. Attendance was 722,256, or an average of 9,441 per game. This was, again, pretty low, and there had been a long decline since 1948 when 2.6 million fans had come to Tribe games. There was a type of batting helmet in 1957, liners inside of caps, that was becoming more popular. Al Lopez, former Tribe manager, was the White Sox manager, and he was the 1957 Manager of the Year, according to the Associated Press. After the season, the Brooklyn Dodgers moved to Los Angeles, California, and the New York Giants moved to San Francisco, California. So New York City lost 2 of the 3 teams, and then, of course, they would get the Mets in 1962. John McGraw's widow, Blanche, was at the last Giants game at the Polo Grounds. Of course, John McGraw was the longtime Giants manager, and she said, quote, "I still can't believe it. New York can never be the same to me." New York City's 10-year domination of baseball ended in 1957. Roger Kahn wrote, quote, "The era was ended when it was time for the era to end. Casey Stengel defeated in the World Series, and the Dodgers and the Giants moving west." The Tribe owner, again, our head of the ownership group in 1957, was William R. Daley, who was head of the ownership group for the Tribe from 1956 to 1962. William R. Daley. Hank Greenberg was general manager in 1957. He was Tribe GM from 1950 to 1957. This was his last year as Tribe GM. He was fired by the ownership group on October 16th after the season. Morris Eckhouse wrote, quote, "Hank Greenberg's departure ended a run of top-quality baseball that was unmatched in Cleveland baseball history. The Indians won 60% of their games, 737 and 493, while Greenberg was general manager." After the 1970 season, Terry Pluto wrote, quote, "Goodbye to the general manager Hank Greenberg, who helped to build the great teams of the 1950s. Now, in my opinion, the Tribe lost the best GM, Hank Greenberg. The new GM would be Frank Lane, who is universally considered the worst GM. And this change from Greenberg to Lane was a major factor in the Tribe having tough decades in the 1960s, 70s, and 80s up until 1994. Jack Torrey wrote, quote, "The Cleveland sports writers are due a share of the blame. Sports writers are not responsible for putting teams on the field, but they do contribute to the atmosphere. For decades, Cleveland sports writers have been a sour lot. Gordon Cobbledick, Whitey Lewis, and other Cleveland sports writers detested Hank Greenberg and liked Frank Lane. They universally believed the Indians in 1957 were on the point of collapse, and in that judgment they were wrong. They rarely encouraged the Indians to undertake the gradual but productive process of building a strong farm system." Hank Greenberg said, quote, "So the 1957 season was the first year that the Indians were not a contender. I had been with Cleveland since 1948, and by this time the wolves were howling. The press was on me constantly. So again, he was fired partly because of the pressure from the media, Cleveland sports media, on the ownership group. Regarding Bill Veeck, former Tribe owner Hank Greenberg said, quote, Bill Veeck had been operated on over 30 times, and the incredible thing about him was his spirit. He never complained. He was never down. He was always cheerful and optimistic and friendly. He wouldn't permit his handicap to dampen his spirit and enthusiasm for living. He invented bat night and ball night and cap night and glove night. He could work for 24 hours, sleep for 24 hours, and his generator would be recharged. His eyes would be bright. He was always ready to go. I never saw a man with that kind of energy. As an older man, Hank Greenberg enjoyed playing tennis. And one day he was heckled by Mark Fidrich, who was a star pitcher for the Detroit Tigers. They called him the Bird. And Greenberg lost his temper and came over to Fidrich and said, quote, I can hit anything you pitch, down the middle, outside, inside, curveball, slider, screwball. And Fidrich didn't know who he was. And later Greenberg said to a friend, you got to intimidate pitchers. Hank Greenberg died in 1986 at age 75. His son, Stephen Greenberg, said, quote, he taught me that you don't have to break every record to achieve greatness. You don't have to be invincible to be strong, and you don't have to be perfect to be loved. What an incredible life and career for Hank Greenberg. Now, the Tribe broadcasters, Jimmy Dudley was a Tribe radio broadcaster on WERE radio, and Dudley was a Tribe broadcaster from 1948 to 1967. Jimmy Dudley. His partner was Bob Neal, who was a TV or radio broadcaster for the Tribe from 1952 to 1953, and from 1957 to 1972. Bob Neal. On television, Ken Coleman was on WEWS TV as a Tribe broadcaster, and Coleman was a Tribe broadcaster from 1954 to 1963. Coleman's partner was Jim Britt on WEWS TV. Jim Britt was a Tribe TV broadcaster from 1954 to 1957. This was the end of his time in Cleveland. He returned to his native Boston and became a Boston newscaster and sportscaster. Jim Britt. The new manager for the Tribe in 1957 was Kirby Farrell. Farrell was born in 1913 in McNairy County, Tennessee. He died in 1975 in Nashville, Tennessee at age 62. During his playing career, he batted .262 with 177 hits, 55 RBIs. He played for the Boston Braves in 1943 and the Chicago White Sox in 1945, and was the Tribe manager. He was just the Tribe manager in 1957. That was the extent of his MLB managing experience. He was a Chicago White Sox coach from 1966 to 1969, and a Tribe coach from 1970 to 1971. Three-time Sporting News Minor League Manager of the Year, 1954, 1956, and 1961. He was a manager in the minor leagues for 21 seasons, won 1,710 games, lost 1,456 games, for a winning percentage of .540. He died of a heart attack at age 62 in Nashville. In the minors, Farrell played for the Beckley Black Knights, the Buffalo Bisons, Canton Terriers, Erie Sailors, Memphis Chickasaws, and Vicksburg Hillbillies. He was fired by Hank Greenberg after the season. Bud Daley said, quote, Bud Daley was a pitcher, said, quote, Kirby Farrell was the goofiest manager I've seen in my life. Billy Harrell said, quote, after some losses, he'd walk home, refusing to get on the bus. He wouldn't even talk to us. Earl Averill II said, quote, Kirby Farrell was different from anybody, but I liked him a lot. Dick Williams said, quote, poor Kirby didn't have a chance. He gets his shot in the big leagues, and Herb Score gets hit in the eye, and the rest of our pitching staff goes down the drain. We didn't have much of a ball club, so there was going to be rebuilding taking place, and it would cost Kirby his job. Kirby Farrell. Now the Tribe coaching staff, Mel Harder was back as Tribe pitching coach. Harder was a Tribe player from 1928 to 1947, and a Tribe pitching coach from 1948 to 1963. He was a Tribe interim manager during the 1961 and 1962 seasons. He threw out the first pitch at Cleveland Municipal Stadium in 1932 and the last ceremonial pitch at the stadium in 1993. Mel Harder. Red Kress was back. Kress was a Tribe coach from 1953 to 1960. Red Kress. Bill Loeb was back, and Bill Loeb was a Tribe coach from 1951 to 1956. 1957. Bill Loeb. Eddie Stanky was a new coach. Stanky was a Tribe coach from 1957 to 1958. Stanky was born in 1915 in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and died in 1999 in Fairhope, Alabama at age 83. During his playing career, he batted .268 with 29 home runs and 364 RBIs. Stanky played for the Chicago Cubs, Brooklyn Dodgers, Boston Braves, New York Giants, and St. Louis Cardinals from 1943 to 1953. He was a manager for the St. Louis Cardinals from 1952 to 55, and the White Sox from 66 to 68, and for the Texas Rangers in one game in 1977. His managerial record was he won 467 games, lost 435 for a winning percentage of .518. As a player, he had the famous ability to draw walks, and he drew 100 walks or more in 6 seasons. In 1946, he hit only .273, but led the league in on-base percentage at .436 with 137 walks. Leo Durocher said, quote, "He can't hit, he can't run, he can't field. He's no nice guy. All the little SOB can do is win." When he was a runner on third base with less than 2 outs, he would station himself in shallow left field beyond third base, and if there was a fly ball, he would take off and try to time it so he could step on third base, running at full speed and coming home. And that practice was outlawed. It's called the Stanky maneuver. Well, the Stanky maneuver, as a second baseman, he would jump up and down and waving his arms to distract the hitter. He also would enjoy doing the delayed steal. As a runner, he would feign a disinterest in stealing, and the infielders would return to their normal position after a pitch. He would take off. He would hold up games when his team was behind, hoping the game would be called on account of darkness. As a player-manager, he would walk to the mound on every pitch, and that led to the one trip by the manager to the mound per inning rule. In 1947, Stanky supported Jackie Robinson, his teammate on the Dodgers, and yelled at opponents who were insulting Robinson. That was portrayed in the movie 42, and Stanky was played by the actor Jesse Luken. In 1952, he was the MLB Manager of the Year, according to Sporting News. He became the head baseball coach at the University of South Alabama for 14 seasons with a record of .490 and .195, winning percentage of .714. Again, in 77, for the Texas Rangers, he managed the team for 1 year, only 18 hours, and resigned, the shortest tenure of any manager in MLB history. He's in the Mobile Sports Hall of Fame. There's Eddie Stanky Field at the University of South Alabama. Stanky was of Polish and Russian descent. In the minors, he played for the Greenville Buckshots, the Macon Peaches, Minneapolis Millers, and Portsmouth Cubs. Eddie Stanky. Jim Hegan was the Tribe catcher, starting catcher. He batted .216 with 32 hits. He scored 14 runs, 7 doubles, 4 home runs, 15 RBIs, 16 walks in 58 games. Hegan was with Cleveland from 1941 to 1942 and from 1946 to 1957. This was the end of his time in Cleveland. His MLB playing career continued until 1960. Then he went into coaching, and his last year of coaching was with the Yankees in 1980. Then he was a Yankee scout till his death in 1984. His son Mike was a Tribe broadcaster from 1989 to 2011. And Mike was an MLB player from 1964 to 77. And his son Jim Hegan is in the Tribe Hall of Fame. Jim Hegan. Vic Wirtz was at first base. Wirtz batted .282 with 145 hits. 84 runs scored, 21 doubles, 28 home runs, 105 RBIs, 2 stolen bases, 78 walks. He struck out 88 times in 144 games. Wirtz was with Cleveland from 1954 to 1958, and he played in the 1957 All-Star Game. Vic Wirtz. Bobby Avila was at second base. Avila batted .268 with 124 hits. He scored 60 runs, 19 doubles, 3 triples, 5 home runs, 48 RBIs, 2 stolen bases, 46 walks in 129 games. Avila was with Cleveland from 1949 to 1958. Bobby Avila. Chico Carrascal was at shortstop. Carrascal batted .276 with 108 hits. He scored 37 runs, 14 doubles, a triple, 8 home runs, 57 RBIs, 41 walks in 125 games. And Carrascal was with Cleveland from 1956 to 1958. Chico Carrascal. Al Smith was at third base. Smith batted .247 with 125 hits. He scored 78 runs, 23 doubles, 5 triples, 11 home runs, 49 RBIs, 12 stolen bases, 79 walks in 135 games. And Smith was with Cleveland from 1953 to 1957. And in 1964, Al Smith. Gene Woodling was in left field. Woodling batted .321 with 138 hits. He scored 74 runs, 25 doubles, 2 triples, 19 home runs, 78 RBIs, 64 walks in 133 games. Woodling was with Cleveland in 1943, 1946, and from 1955 to 1957. This was the end of his time in Cleveland. His MLB career continued until 1962, his final year with the New York Mets, and he was named by the Cleveland baseball writers the 1957 Tribe Man of the Year, Gene Woodling. Roger Maris was in center field. Maris batted .235 with 84 hits. He scored 61 runs, 9 doubles, 5 triples, 14 home runs, 51 RBIs, 8 stolen bases, 60 walks in 116 games. Maris was born in 1934 in Hibbing, Minnesota, and died in 1985 in Houston, Texas at age 51. For his career, he batted .260 with 275 home runs and 850 RBIs. He played for the Cleveland Indians, Kansas City Athletics, New York Yankees, and St. Louis Cardinals from 1957 to 1968. Maris was a 4-time All-Star from 1959 to 62. He won 3 World Series titles in 1961 and 62 with the Yankees, and in 1967 with the Cardinals. 2-time American League MVP in 1960 and 1961. He won a Gold Glove in 1960. And he led the American League in home runs in 1961. 2-time American League RBI leader, 60 and 61. The Yankees retired his number 9, and he's a Monument Park honoree at Yankee Stadium. In 1961, Maris broke Babe Ruth's single-season home run record, which was 60, and Maris hit 61. The record was unbroken until 1998, when Mark McGwire hit 70 home runs, and in 2001, Barry Bonds hit 73. Maris was of Croatian heritage. In high school, in Fargo, North Dakota, he had a record 4 return touchdowns in a game, 2 on kickoffs on the football team, 1 on a punt, and 1 on an interception. In 1961, the MLB season was extended from 154 games to 162. And that year, Maris and Mickey Mantle were called the M&M Boys. Both had a chance to break Babe Ruth's record. He hit his 61st home run on October 1st, 1961 against the Red Sox. Pitcher Tracy Stallard at Yankee Stadium. The stress of the home run race pursuit led to stress. Clumps of hair fell out of Maris's head. In Game 7 of the 1962 World Series, Maris had a game-saving play in the bottom of the 9th with Matty Lou, a runner on first. Willie Mays had a double, and Maris had a strong throw that prevented Lou from scoring the tying run and set up the last out, which was a Willie McCovey line drive to Bobby Richardson at second base. The 1967 World Series, Maris hit .385 with a home run and 7 RBIs. The 1970s and 1980s, Maris and his brother owned a Budweiser beer distributorship in Gainesville, Florida. He coached the baseball team for Gainesville's Oak High School, and the baseball field there is named after him. He died of non-Hodgkin lymphoma blood cancer. He appeared in the 1962 film Safe at Home with Mickey Mantle, and the 1962 film That Touch of Mink with Yogi Berra, Cary Grant, and Doris Day. There's a Roger Maris Museum in Fargo, North Dakota. 1999, Roger Maris, there was a 61 and 61 U.S. postage stamp. The 2001 movie, 61 with an asterisk by Billy Crystal regarding Maris's 1961 Yankees season. Hank Greenberg said, quote, "I watched Roger Maris swing and catch some fly balls." And when Maris was in high school, and I knew quickly he was a hell of a prospect. Mudcat Grant said, quote, "I knew Roger at spring trainings all the way through the minor leagues, and everywhere, everyone liked Roger. It didn't matter where you were from or what race you were, you couldn't dislike him." Rudy Regalado said, quote, Roger and I roomed together for half a season. We hit it off. We had a lot in common. We were both Catholic and went to church on Sundays. Maris and his wife Pat rented a house in Parma in the Cleveland area in 1957, and Rocky Colavito was a neighbor. Maris and Colavito carpooled to the stadium and went to Catholic Mass together at St. Francis de Sales Church. Don Mossy said, quote, Roger was just a good old country boy. In Baltimore, Roger, Rocky, Herb, Ray, and I would go to a fish place and order a big tray of crabs and clean them out. 5 quiet guys who talked only when it was about baseball and helping our team win. Roger Maris. Rocky Colavito was in right field. Colavito batted .252 with 116 hits. He scored 66 runs, 26 doubles, 25 home runs, 84 RBIs, a stolen base, 71 walks in 134 games. Colavito played for Cleveland from 1955 to 1959 and from 1965 to 1967. He was a Tribe coach in 1973 and from 1976 to 78. Hank Greenberg said, quote, one of my favorite ball players was Rocky Colavito. He had the determination and desire to make good, and no one worked any harder to achieve that goal than Rocky. And anyone who worked hard became a favorite of mine because it was my style to give everything I had to baseball. Rocky, of course, was a chip off the old block. 1959, Rocky Colavito. Larry Raines played some infield. As a bench player, Raines batted .262 with 64 hits. He scored 39 runs, 14 doubles, 2 home runs, 16 RBIs, 5 stolen bases, 19 walks in 96 games. Raines was born in 1930 in St. Albans, West Virginia, and died in 1978 in Lansing, Michigan at age 47. For his career, he batted .253 with 2 home runs and 16 RBIs in 103 games. Raines played for Cleveland from 1957 to 1958. He was a middle infielder and second baseman. The first pro baseball player to play minor league baseball, Negro League baseball, MLB baseball, and in Japan. In the Negro Leagues, he played for the Chicago American Giants. And in 1952 was the top vote getter in the Negro League East-West All-Star Game with 24,583 votes. In 1953, he went to Japan, played 2 seasons for the Hanyuku Braves. In 1953, he won the Pacific Coast League batting title, hit .337 with 18 home runs and 96 RBIs. Again, he was in Japan in 1962 and Venezuela in 1961 for Rapiños de Occidente. And in the minor leagues, he played for the San Diego Padres. Larry Raines. George Strickland played some second base. Strickland batted .234 with 47 hits. He scored 21 runs, 8 doubles, 2 triples, a home run, 19 RBIs, 26 walks in 89 games. Strickland was a Tribe player from 1952 to 1957, and from 1959 to 1960. He was a Tribe coach from 1963 to 1969, a Tribe manager in 1964 for 72 games, and in 1966 for 39 games. George Strickland. Dick Williams was a utility player. Williams batted .283 with 58 hits. He scored 33 runs, 7 doubles, 6 home runs, 17 RBIs, 3 stolen bases, 12 walks in 67 games. Williams was born in 1929 in St. Louis, Missouri, and died in 2011 in Las Vegas, Nevada at age 82. During his playing career, he batted .260 with 70 home runs and 331 RBIs. Williams played for the Brooklyn Dodgers, Baltimore Orioles, Cleveland Indians, Kansas City Athletics, and Boston Red Sox from 1951 to 1964. He was a manager for the Boston Red Sox, Oakland Athletics, California Angels, Montreal Expos, San Diego Padres, and Seattle Mariners from 1967 to 1988. He won 2 World Series titles as the manager in 1972 and 73 for the Oakland A's. He won an American League title as manager for the Red Sox in 67 and a National League title as manager in 84 for the Padres. He's in the Boston Red Sox Hall of Fame and the San Diego Padres Hall of Fame, and then he was inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame in 2008. He played left field and third base, was a coach and a consultant. In 1967 with the Red Sox, they were considered a talented, lazy, but a country club team. Carl Yastrzemski said, quote, if you don't keep your nose to the grindstone, you won't win. We kept our noses so far away from the grindstone we couldn't see it. And Dick Williams came in as a disciplinarian. In '66, the Red Sox were finished a half game from last place. And, of course, in 67, they won the pennant. The Impossible Dream Team, the first American League pennant for the Red Sox since 1946. And in the World Series, they lost in 7 games. Williams was the 67 Manager of the Year by the Sporting News. With the Oakland A's, he managed guys like Catfish Hunter, Reggie Jackson, Sal Bando, Burt Campaneris, Raleigh Fingers, and Joe Rudy. The team had long hair and mustaches. The 72 World Series was called the Hares versus the Squares, the A's against the Reds. He was in conflict with owner Charlie Finley and resigned after the 73 title. In 79 and 80 with the Expos, his team finished second twice. In 89, he was the manager for the West Palm Beach Tropics in the Senior Professional Baseball Association, and that team made it to the title game. On TV, he appeared in the TV show The Hollywood Squares and won $50,000. In the minors, he played for the Fort Worth Cats, and his number was retired by them. Dick Williams. Russ Nixon was a spare catcher. Nixon batted .281 with 52 hits. He scored 15 runs, 7 doubles, a triple, 2 home runs, 18 RBIs, 12 walks in 62 games. Nixon was born in 1935 in Cleves, Ohio, and died in 2016 in Las Vegas, Nevada, at age 81. For his career, he batted .268 with 27 home runs and 266 RBIs. He played for the Cleveland Indians, Boston Red Sox, and Minnesota Twins from 1957 to 1968. He's also a manager and had a record of .231 and .437 for a winning percentage of .400, managing the Cincinnati Reds in 82 and 83 and the Atlanta Braves from 1988 to 1990. He had the record for the most games played without a stolen base in his career. Interesting. Nixon was a coach for the Cincinnati Reds, Montreal Expos, Atlanta Braves, and Seattle Mariners from 1976 to 1992. He won a World Series title. He went to the World Series in 1970. He won a World Series title in 1976 as a coach for the Reds. In the minors, he played for the Jacksonville Beach Seabirds, Keokuk Colonels, Portland Beavers, and Green Bay Blue Jays. Russ Nixon. Hal Narragon was a spare catcher. He batted .256 with 31 hits. He scored 12 runs, had a double, a triple, 8 RBIs, 12 walks in 57 games. Narragon was with Cleveland in 1951, and from 1954 to 1959. Hal Narragon. Dick Brown was another spare catcher. Brown batted .263 with 30 hits. He scored 10 runs, had 4 doubles, 4 home runs, 22 RBIs, a stolen base, 4 walks in 34 games. Brown was born in 1935 in Shinston, West Virginia, and died in 1970 in Baltimore, Maryland at age 35. For his career, he batted .244 with 62 home runs and 223 RBIs. Brown played for the Cleveland Indians, Chicago White Sox, Detroit Tigers, and Baltimore Orioles from 1957 to 1965. In 1964, he was part of a back-to-back-to-back home run sequence for the Tigers with Norm Cash and Steve Boros. He died of a brain tumor at age 35. He was an Orioles scout until his death. He went to play for the Florida State Seminoles baseball team. In the minors, he played for the Mobile Bears, Omaha Cardinals, and Spartanburg Peaches. Dick Brown. Joe Altobelli played some first base. Altobelli batted .207 with 18 hits. He scored 9 runs, 3 doubles, 2 triples, 9 RBIs, 3 stolen bases, 5 walks in 83 games. Altobelli was with Cleveland in 1955 and 1957. This was the end of his time in Cleveland. His MLB career as a player continued until 1961, and as a manager until 1991 with the Chicago Cubs. And he won a World Series title as the manager for the '83 Orioles. Joe Altobelli. Joe Caffie played some right field. Caffie batted .270 with 24 hits. He scored 14 runs, 2 doubles, a triple, 3 home runs, 10 RBIs, 4 walks in 32 games. Caffie was with Cleveland from 1956 to 1957. This was the end of his MLB career. He played for the Cleveland Buckeyes in 1950 in the Negro Leagues. Joe Caffie. Jim Busby played some center field. Busby batted .189 with 14 hits. He scored 9 runs, 2 doubles, a triple, 2 home runs, 4 RBIs, a walk in 30 games. Busby was with Cleveland from 1956 to 1957. This was the end of his time in Cleveland. His MLB career continued until 1962. Jim Busby. Jimmy Harrell played some infield. Harrell batted .263 with 15 hits. He scored 6 runs, had a double, a triple, a home run, 5 RBIs, 3 stolen bases, 4 walks in 22 games. And Harrell was with Cleveland in 1955. And from 1957 to 1958, Billy Harrell. Kenny Kuhn played some infield. Kuhn batted .170 with 9 hits. He scored 5 runs, had 5 RBIs, 4 walks in 40 games. And Kuhn was with Cleveland from 1955 to 1957. Kenny Kuhn. Eddie Robinson was back, and he played some first base. He batted .222 with 6 hits. He scored a run, had a double, a home run, 3 RBIs in 19 games. Robinson was with Cleveland in 1942, and from 1946 to 1948, and in 1957. 1957 was the end of his MLB playing career. He went on to become a GM. He was a GM with the Texas Rangers until 1982. He's still alive today in 2019 at age 98, and he's the only 1948 Tribe player still alive. He attended Game 6 of the 2016 World Series at Progressive Field when the Tribe played the Cubs. Eddie Robinson. Preston Ward played some first base. Ward batted .182 with 2 hits. He scored 2 runs, had a double in 10 games, and Ward was with Cleveland from 1956 to 1958. This was the end of his time in Cleveland. His MLB career continued until 1959. Preston Ward. Bob Usher was a utility player. Usher batted .125 with 1 hit and 8 at-bats. He scored a run, had a walk in 10 games. Usher was born in 1925 in San Diego, California, and died in 2014 in San Jose, California at age 89. For his career, he batted .235 with 18 home runs and 102 RBIs. He played for the Cincinnati Reds, Chicago Cubs, Cleveland Indians, and Washington Senators from 1946 to 1957. In the Second World War, he was in the U.S. Navy. In the minors, he played for the Birmingham Barons, Tulsa Oilers, Miami Redhawks, and he also played in the Caribbean Series. Bob Usher. The pitching staff was anchored by Early Wynn, the ace pitcher. Wynn was 14-17 with an ERA of 4.31. 40 games, 37 starts, 13 complete games, a shutout, a save, 263 innings pitched, and 184 strikeouts. Wynn batted .116 with 10 hits. He scored 4 runs, had 4 RBIs, 11 walks, and struck out 23 times. Wynn was with Cleveland from 1949 to 1957 and in 1963, and he played on the All-Star Game in 1957. Early Wynn. Mike Garcia was 12-8 with an ERA of 3.75. 38 games, 27 starts, 9 complete games, a shutout, 211 and a third innings pitched, and 110 strikeouts. Garcia batted .160 with 12 hits. He scored 3 runs, had 2 doubles, 8 RBIs, 3 walks, and struck out 12 times. Garcia was with Cleveland from 1948 to 1959. Mike Garcia. Don Massey was 11-10 with an ERA of 4.13. 36 games, 22 starts, 6 complete games, a shutout, 2 saves, 159 innings pitched, and 97 strikeouts. Massey batted .218 with 12 hits. He scored 4 runs, had a triple, an RBI, 4 walks, and struck out 12 times. Massey was with Cleveland from 1954 to 1958, and he played in the 1957 All-Star Game. Don Massey. Bob Lemon was 6-11 with an ERA of 4.60, 21 games, 17 starts, 2 complete games, 117 and a third innings pitched, and 45 strikeouts. He batted .065 with 3 hits and 46 at-bats. He scored 2 runs, had a double, a home run, an RBI, and struck out 14 times. Lemon was with Cleveland from 1941 to 1942, and from 1946 to 1958. He was a Tribe coach in 1960. In the middle of the season, he had a rotator cuff shoulder injury, and it was out the rest of the season. Bob Lemon. Ray Narleski was the closer. Narleski was 11-5 with an ERA of 3.09, 46 games, 15 starts, 7 complete games, a shutout, 16 saves, 154 and a third innings pitched, and 93 strikeouts. Narleski batted .093 with 4 hits. He scored 3 runs, had a home run, 3 RBIs, a walk, and struck out 17 times. Narleski was with Cleveland from 1954 to 1958. Ray Narleski. Cal McLish was a relief pitcher. McLish was 9-7 with an ERA of 2.74. 42 games, 7 starts, 2 complete games, a save, 144 and a third innings pitched, and 88 strikeouts. McLish batted .186 with 8 hits. He scored 7 runs, had 2 home runs, 7 RBIs, 7 walks, and struck out 17 times. And McLish was with Cleveland from 1956 to 1959. Cal McLish. Bud Daley was a relief pitcher. Daley was 2-8 with an ERA of 4.43. 34 games, 10 starts, a complete game, 2 saves, 87 and a third innings, pitched in 54 strikeouts. Daley batted .200 with 4 hits. He scored 2 runs, had a walk, and struck out 3 times. He was with Cleveland from 1955 to 1957. This was the end of his time in Cleveland. His MLB career continued until 1964. Bud Daley. Dick Tomanek was another relief pitcher. Tomanek was 2-1 with an ERA of 5.68. 34 games, 2 starts, 69 and 2/3 innings, pitched in 55 strikeouts. Tomanek batted .231 with 3 hits. He scored 2 runs and had a double. He was with Cleveland from 1953 to 1954, and from 1957 to 1958. Dick Tomanek. Stan Petula was a relief pitcher. Petula was 2-2 with an ERA of 4.98. 23 games, 5 starts, a complete game, 59 and 2/3 innings, pitched and 17 strikeouts. Petula batted .200 with 3 hits. He scored 3 runs, had 2 RBIs, and a walk. He was born in 1931 in Hackensack, New Jersey, and died in 1965 in Hackensack at age 34. His MLB career was just with the Cleveland Indians in 1957. He's in the Hackensack High School Sports Hall of Fame. Petula had 8 years in the minors. He had personal difficulties and committed suicide with carbon monoxide poisoning at age 34. Tragic. In the minors, he played for the Buffalo Bisons, Chattanooga Lookouts, Mobile Bears, and Spartanburg Peaches. Stan Petula. In July, one more thing, in July, Petula blew out his arm and never pitched again. Stan Petula. Herb Score was 2-1 with an ERA of 2.00. 5 games, all starts, 3 complete games, a shutout, 36 innings pitched, and 39 strikeouts. Score batted .091 with 1 hit and 11 at-bats. He scored a run and walked twice. Score was a Tribe player from 1955 to 1959. He was a Tribe TV and radio broadcaster from 1964 to 1997. He's buried in Lakewood Park Cemetery in Rocky River, Ohio. On May 7, 1957, at Cleveland Municipal Stadium, the Tribe and Yankees were playing. In the first inning, Score was on the mound. The second batter was Gil McDougald, who had a line drive that hit Score in the face, broke his nose. He had hemorrhaging of his right eye. It was a very serious injury. He was out for the rest of the season. Score said, quote, "I never saw the ball. As soon as I hit the ground, I prayed to St. Jude. I was afraid I wouldn't be able to see." Bob Lemon came in and was the new pitcher, and he said, quote, "I went to the mound after they cleaned up the blood." Gil McDougald was in tears after the game and said, quote, "The main thing I wanted to know was if he was going to lose his eye." Bob Dolgan, Cleveland sports writer, said, quote, "Herb Score was 23 and the most overpowering left-hander in baseball." Bob Lemon said, quote, "If he hadn't been hurt, there's no telling what he would have done." Gil McDougald said, quote, "He was faster than Sandy Koufax. Right from the start, everybody looked at him and said, Hall of Fame." Tris Speaker said, quote, "If nothing happens to Herb Score, this kid has got to be the greatest." Regarding the line drive that hit him in the face, Herb Score said, quote, "All I know is the ball got big really fast." He had a tear in his retina of his right eye, and his career went into decline. Jimmy Dudley said, quote, "I still insist Herb never got over the effect of the blow to the eye. That would change anyone, and he changed his motion so he would protect his eye. I firmly believe that." Score disagreed. He said, quote, "The reason my motion changed was because I hurt my elbow, and I overcompensated for it, and ended up with some bad habits." Mickey Mantle was on deck when Score got hit in the face and said, quote, "I remember hearing pow, pow, the ball hitting the ball, the bat hitting the ball, and then the ball hitting Score. Just like that, almost no time in between." Cleveland sports writer Martin Gitlin wrote, quote, "Herb Score grew thankful that he hadn't been killed, rather than lament his misfortune. He felt like he gained a greater appreciation for his sight." When Score was hit in the face, Al Smith was the third baseman and went to the mound. He said, quote, "When I get there, blood was pouring out of his nose, mouth, and ears." Numerous facial bones for Score were shattered. Score, while he was laying down, he asked for Mike Garcia, his good friend. Regarding the 57 tribe and scores injury, Cal McLish said, "It killed our chances." Herb score. Vito Valentinetti was 2-2 with an ERA of 4.94, 11 games, 2 starts, a complete game, 23 2/3 innings pitched and 9 strikeouts. Valentinetti batted .200 with 1 hit and 5 at-bats and struck out 3 times. He was born in 1928 in West New York, New Jersey, and he's still alive in 2019 at age 90. During his career, he was 13-14 with an ERA of 4.73 and 257 strikeouts. Valentinetti played for the Chicago White Sox, Chicago Cubs, Cleveland Indians, Detroit Tigers, and Washington Senators. From 1954 to 1959, he went to Iona College. He served in the Korean War, had 2 years of military service. In the minors, he played for the Colorado Springs Sky Sox, the Iona Gales, and Memphis Chickasaws. Vito Valentinetti. Hank Geyer was 1-1 with an ERA of 5.75, 10 games, 1 start, 20 1/3 innings pitched, and 9 strikeouts. Geyer batted 4 times, did not have a hit, and struck out once. He was with Cleveland from 1955 to 1957. This was the end of his time in Cleveland. His MLB career continued until 1970. Johnny Gray was 1-3 with an ERA of 5.85, 7 games, 3 starts, a complete game, a shutout, 20 innings pitched, and 3 strikeouts. Gray batted 4 times, did not have a hit, and struck out once. He was born in 1926 in West Palm Beach, Florida, and died in 2014 in Boca Raton, Florida, at age 87. For his career, he was 4-18 with an ERA of 6.18 and 169 strikeouts. He played for the Philadelphia Athletics, Kansas City Athletics, Cleveland Indians, and Philadelphia Phillies from 1954 to 1958. In the Second World War, he was in the U.S. Army and served in the Mediterranean Theater. After he retired, he worked as an apartment complex manager in Miami, Florida. He went to Rollins College and is in their Hall of Fame. In the minor leagues, he played for the Columbus Jets, Norfolk Tars, and Ottawa A's. He also played in Venezuela for the Navegantes de Magallanes. Johnny Gray. Bob Alexander was 0-1 with an ERA of 9.00, 5 games, 7 innings pitched, and 1 strikeout. He batted once and struck out. He was born in 1922 in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada, and died in 1993 in Oceanside, California at age 70. For his career, he was 1-1 with an ERA of 10.64 and 2 strikeouts. He played for the Baltimore Orioles in 1955 and the Cleveland Indians in 1957. He also played for the Toy Flyers in 1959 in Japan. He was an aviation cadet in the U.S. Navy in the Second World War. In the minors, he played for the Amsterdam Rug Makers, Beaumont Exporters, Binghamton Triplets, Hagerstown Owls, Denver Bears, and in Venezuela for the Licoreros de Pampero and Sabios de Vargas. Bob Alexander. Art Houdeman had no decisions and an ERA of 6.75, 3 games, 4 innings pitched, and 3 strikeouts. He did not bat. Houdeman was with Cleveland from 1953 to 1957. 1957 was the end of his MLB career. He continued in the minor leagues until 1959 with the Portland Beavers. Art Houdeman. And finally, Hoyt Wilhelm was 1-0 with an ERA of 2.45, 2 games, a save, 3 2/3 innings pitched, and 1 earned run allowed. He did not bat. Wilhelm was born in 1922 in Huntersville, North Carolina, and died in 2002 in Sarasota, Florida, at age 80. For his career, he was 143 and 122 with an ERA of 2.52 and 1,610 strikeouts and 228 saves. Wow. Wilhelm played for the New York Giants, St. Louis Cardinals, Cleveland Indians, Baltimore Orioles, Chicago White Sox, California Angels, Atlanta Braves, Chicago Cubs, and Los Angeles Dodgers from 1952 to 1972. Wow. He was a 5-time All-Star in 1953, 59, 61, 62, and 70. Won a World Series title in 54 with the Giants. Two-time ERA leader in 52 and 59. He threw a no-hitter in 58 with the Baltimore Orioles and is in the Baltimore Orioles Hall of Fame. He was inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame in 1985. They called him Old Sarge. He was a knuckleball pitcher. He won 120. His 124 wins were all in relief, an MLB record. He was the first pitcher to have 200 saves. and the first pitcher to pitch in 1,000 games. He retired at age 49. He had one of the lowest ERAs in history, 2.52. After his playing career, he was a coach for the New York Yankees and Atlanta Braves. Wilhelm was one of 11 children of a poor tenant farmer. In the Second World War, he was in the U.S. Army and served in Europe. He was at the Battle of the Bulge and was wounded and received a Purple Heart. In his entire playing career, he had a piece of shrapnel in his back. They called him Old Sarge because of his military service. In 1954, his catcher, Ray Catt, had 4 passed balls because it's hard to catch a knuckleball. He mentored Wilbur Wood. His last game pitched was 16 days short of his 50th birthday. He also mentored Joe Niekro and Mickey Lolich. He's the first relief pitcher inducted into the Hall of Fame. Threw his knuckleball his whole career. He also taught Charlie Huff the knuckleball. In the minors, he played for the Knoxville Smokies, Minneapolis Millers, Mooresville Moors. The Billy Crystal 2001 movie 61 with an asterisk regarding Roger Maris's chase for the Babe Ruth 60 home run record. Wilhelm appears in the movie portrayed by Tom Candiotti, who was a Tribe pitcher from 1986 to 1991 and 1999. Game 154 of the season, Maris's last at bat was against Hoyt Wilhelm in the 9th inning. He hit a ground ball to Wilhelm. It was last chance to hit 60 home runs in 154 games. Hoyt Wilhelm. Now the World Series, 1957, the Milwaukee Braves, National League champions, defeated the New York Yankees, American League champions, 4-3. Hall of Famers in the 57th series included umpires Jocko Conlon and Nestor Shilak. For the Braves, Hank Aaron, Red Shane Dienst, Warren Spahn, and Eddie Matthews. For the Yankees, Casey Stengel, the manager, Yogi Berra, Whitey Ford, Mickey Mantle, and Enos Slaughter. And the MVP of the World Series was Lou Burdette, who won 3 games as a pitcher for the Braves. Now, the Braves had moved from Boston. Their first year in Milwaukee was 1953, so only 4 years later they won the World Series. This was something. Hank Aaron hit .393 with 11 hits and 3 home runs and 7 RBIs in the series. June of 1957, the Yankees traded Billy Martin to the Kansas City Athletics. He would return to the Yankees as manager in 1975 and won an American League title in 76 and a World Series in 77 and had famous battles with George Steinbrenner and Reggie Jackson. After the Braves won Game 7 of the World Series, Peter Golenbach wrote, quote, "From Milwaukee office buildings and apartment houses, confetti and streamers covered the town in a celebration that has never been duplicated there since. People wept openly, and strangers hugged each other in the streets." I read a fine book. The title is Bushville Wins, the wild saga of the 1957 Milwaukee Braves and the Screwball Sluggers and Beer Swiggers, who canned the New York Yankees and changed baseball, by John Klima, 2012. John Klima wrote, quote, "In the eyes of New York, Milwaukee was strictly Bushville. The term was derogatory and condescending. It implied that even though Milwaukee had the Braves, they were not major league people. Proud Wisconsin fans were infuriated and invigorated. They would take on Wall Street from Main Street to prove that Milwaukee and the Midwest were every bit American as the big cities back east." September 23rd, Hank Aaron had a game-winning home run at County Stadium in Milwaukee, Braves and Cardinals, that gave Milwaukee the victory in the game and the National League pennant in 1957. Afterward, the ballpark organist played "Happy Days Are Here Again." John Klima wrote, quote, called it, quote, "a most meaningful home run, one that time could never touch, and would carry deep and wonderful meaning for the rest of Henry Aaron's life." The 1957 World Series was this town's big moment, Milwaukee's opportunity to prove it was a citizen of the world. Henry Aaron wrote, quote, "Those people were so good to us, we felt like we were going to win, but we really wanted to win for those folks." Attendance for Milwaukee Braves games at home in 1953 to 57 was an average of 29,725. 16 times they got 40,000 plus. 181 times they had 30,000 plus. John Klima wrote, quote, "Milwaukee Braves fans were the most powerful fan force in baseball." Game 1 of the 57 World Series was at Yankee Stadium in New York City. John Klima wrote, quote, "The Milwaukee Braves were coming to town to take on the New York baseball dynasty. The nation was hungry to see end." The Yankees said this was their 23rd World Series in 36 years. After Game 2 of the World Series, the Soviet Union launched the satellite Sputnik, the first satellite, and the space race began between the U.S. and the Soviet Union. When the Yankees arrived in Milwaukee for Game 3, there was a welcoming group of people at the train station, but the Yankees did not like it. And one of the Yankees said, quote, "This is Bush League." Milwaukee Braves fans were offended. There was no respect. Casey Stengel would not meet the welcoming citizens. Game 4, the Braves were down 2-1 in the World Series, and they blew a 4-1 lead in the 9th. Were down 5-4 in the 10th, but tied the game and won it on Eddie Matthews' home run. So they were almost down 3-1 in the series, but it was 2-2. John Klima wrote, quote, "Cities that didn't have major league teams looked at the Milwaukee Braves and saw a shining example of what they wanted to become. Game 7 was at Yankee Stadium. The Braves won that game 5-0, and at the end of the game, Yankee fans were actually cheering the Braves, whom they could identify as underdogs. And the Yankee fans were tired of winning so many World Series. The Braves moved to Atlanta after the '65 season, a strange series of events. 1970, they got the Milwaukee Brewers, which had been the year before the Seattle Pilots. And so they got this slogan. After they won the series, there was this slogan, "Bushville wins." Henry Aaron, who hit his 755th home run in 1974 for the Atlanta Braves, said, quote, "The Milwaukee years were a very beautiful time." And he returned and played for the Milwaukee Brewers at the end of his career. Now, the MVPs for 1955, Mickey Mantle of the New York Yankees in the American League, and in the National League, Henry Aaron of the Milwaukee Braves. So that's the story of the 1957 Cleveland Indians, and I think Tribe fans and a lot of people all over the country, all over the world, were happy that the Milwaukee Braves won the World Series. God bless the guys who played for the Cleveland Indians in 1957. And everyone else associated with the team, including the fans, especially the Civil War veterans, First World War veterans, Second World War veterans, and Korean War veterans, captains of the Cuyahoga, lovers of Lake Erie, Terminal Tower Power, fans of the Free Stamp statue and the Fountain of Eternal Life, Euclid Avenue electricity, Severance Hall stalwarts, Cleveland Museum of Art enthusiasts, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and Museum rebels, Christmas Story House happy people, Museum of Contemporary Art maniacs, Cleveland Botanical Garden goers, Old Arcade admirers, Playhouse Square seers, Settlers Landing Park purists, Western Reserve Historical Society wonders, First Energy Stadium friends, Progressive Field pals, Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse renegades, Cuyahoga Valley National Park pioneers, Great Lakes Science Center supporters, and Holden Arboretum enjoyers. Tribe, Browns, Cavs, Monsters, Gladiators, and Fusion Rule. Spiders, Bulldogs, Rosenblums, Barons, Rams, Crusaders, Force, Crunch, and Lumberjacks. Lumberjacks and Rockers rule. Cleveland, City of Champions. Cleveland is the best location in the nation on the north coast of America. New York is the Big Apple. Cleveland is a plum. It's been 71 years since 1948. This is our year. Go Tribe. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. God bless you. Take care. And I'll see you next time.